All set, Madam Clerk? All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the February 9th, 2026 Portsmouth Town Council meeting. In the event of an emergency, we'll ask you to please evacuate the building either through the door you came through, the one that's in the back left-hand corner of the room, or the one that's behind Mr. Reese, if we can get out that door. We will head over to the school department building and wait for further instructions from our first responders. If you would all now please rise and join me in our Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women in harm's way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. On that note, it's 7:08. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here.
I am here. Tonight, we had an executive session. We were updated on any legal proceedings or some of the legal proceedings that we have going on. There were no votes taken during the executive session. Yesterday was a special day. It was Kerrigan Nelson's birthday. And last week on Sunday, we had a beautiful celebration of life for Kerrigan. And Mr. Gleason would like a few moments to say a few words about Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 weeks ago at the January 27th Town Council meeting, we presented a proclamation honoring the life and legacy of Kerrigan Nelson. The year before, this council had proclaimed February 8th of 2025 Kerrigan Nelson Day, also known as Cancer Warrior Day. Yesterday would have been her 25th birthday, and has been said she accomplished so much and touched so many in that brief time. I want to thank Mr. Hamilton, Council President, and Councilor McDowell for speaking about Kerrigan at the last. I will tell you that I was just too emotional to speak, but felt that I had to say something tonight. Having met her was an honor. Having heard her sing, an unbelievable pleasure. Listening to all who spoke and sang at her celebration of life the previous weekend was beautiful and emotional. I just wanted to bring up her memory again tonight, and I will continue to do so for every year that I'm on this council. And I just want to say thank you, Kerrigan, for your inspiration. She was a beautiful person. I do want to say one thing. We were told that the Secana River Bridge lights were going to be on last night in her memory. And I can see them from my house, but I had no intentions of going over the bridge. But as things turn out, somebody called me, they had a problem with their car over in Tiverton, and I ended up going over the bridge. And that's all I could think of was I was meant to do that, and they were beautiful. So thank you for the opportunity to say some nice words about Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Very well said. And some good news on the Kerrigan front. She was a tireless advocate for more money being put towards children's cancer. And just last week, Congress finally got around and actually applied more funding through the advocacy that Kerrigan and others like her had put forth. So it's great news that childhood cancer is getting more research dollars to help find a cure for that awful disease. So great job, Kerrigan. Next up, we have our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve as presented?
Mr. President, in this case, we have to approve, see consent items, agendas 1 and 2, and place on file.
There a second?
That's a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And then we have to approve item number 3.
Motion to approve the mobile peddler's license to mobile food establishment as a renewal to Yapa LLC, doing business as Tolia Food Truck, 39 Rhode Island Avenue, Unit 3 in Newport.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Just one comment,
6 to
Mr.
0.
President, if I may. Just want to say thanks to all the committees that have submitted their minutes. They're now here on the under the consent agenda. Very helpful.
Speaking of minutes, we have minutes for our 1/27/2026 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6 to 0. And we have our town administrators report. Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. With regard to the transportation and curbside program, as of January 31st, 93 households on Prudence Island have signed up, and 2,036 mainland households are using the Headley Street Transfer Station, and 3,222 have signed up for curbside. Just a reminder, the transfer station will be closed, and there will be no curbside pickup next Monday, February 16th, due to the President's Day holiday. All curbside pickups will be delayed one day, including Friday's pickup, which will be done on Saturday. The Portsmouth Police Department is currently accepting applications for its 2026 Citizens Police Academy. As a reminder, this is a 10-week program that offers residents a behind-the-scenes look at modern policing and the day-to-day work of our police department. The academy will meet Thursday evenings from March 19th through May 21st, and will include hands-on events, demonstrations, and open discussions with department personnel. This program has been very well received in the past, and it's a great opportunity for residents to learn more about law enforcement and community policing in Portsmouth. Applications will be accepted through February 17th and are available on the police department's website. With respect to our next fiscal year budget, we've completed our review of town department budgets and received all civic support requests. We're now finalizing the capital improvement plan and the special revenue and enterprise fund portions of the budget. The town has also issued a request for proposals in accordance with the Auditor General regulations for auditing services beginning next summer. Proposals are due later this month, and we will present the bid results to the council in March. Any updated auditing costs will be incorporated into the fiscal 2027 budget. Work is also continuing on implementing the town's updated assessed property values, which should wrap up later in March. As we noted during the January budget briefing, the next budget will reflect recent property revaluations. This will update assessments to current market conditions, but it does not by itself generate new revenue since the tax rate is adjusted to achieve the adopted levy. The school committee begins the first of its 3 budget meetings tomorrow evening. Overall, the process is on schedule, and we remain on track to present a proposed fiscal year 2027 budget to the council at the end of March, consistent with the timeline that we have internally disclosed. Town Hall will be closed, as I mentioned, next Monday, February 16th, in observance of the President's Day holiday. Lastly, I would like to note with sadness the passing of Madeline Pensack, who served the town as Portsmouth as Registrar of Voters for over 9 years. Madeline performed her work with professionalism, kindness, and a deep respect for the importance of fair and accessible elections. Her years of public service were greatly appreciated by the town and by those who had the pleasure of working with her. On behalf of the town, I extend our sincere condolences to her family and friends. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner.
President,
Mr. Reese.
I have one more question for Mr. Rayner. Mr. Rayner, I have a quick question. What's the status of the certificate of occupancy on the senior center? Is that still a temporary situation?
Yeah, that'll remain it'll be regularly updated. There is a TCO. The current one is good through, I believe, February 26th, the end of this month. A couple days before, the building official will go out to make sure that no conditions have changed and reissue the TCO. The TCO will remain in effect until there can be a certificate of occupancy issued for the entire building, which we anticipate won't be until spring.
Well, the reason I ask that is the senior center provides annual tax help, and this is important to the seniors. And I understand there's people showing up right now to get that help, and there's no clear and safe way to access, park, or even enter the building. And then there's no defined workspace to date, but yet they're still, I believe, taking people in to help them with their taxes.
I'll be certainly
look into
willing
that?
to look into that. They can access the building and the space can be used, so I have no reason to believe that.
Well, there's
They
chain
should
link
be.
fence around the whole thing as a security. They don't know how to get in. Is there any way they could have an area in the town hall possibly to work?
Well, let's look to see what we can do at the senior center
All right.
first, and then we'll move from there.
But it's safe for the outside public to use this. All right.
The, yeah, the north side is accessible, not the south side.
People don't know that.
Go to the area, the chain link fence isn't there, but maybe we can put some signs up if we need to. Right. I would like to thank, since Paul is sitting over there in the corner, the DPW for another nice job all night long out taking care of the snow removal. Especially with this storm, there was a lot of drifting and the guys are out there all night long and all morning long getting it ready. I know they rushed a little bit this time, so they get back for the awful Super Bowl that we all were not very happy about. But, but thank all the guys for a great job taking care of the roads. Next up, we have resignations and appointments. We have 2 resignations from the Dog Park Committee for Mr. and Mrs. Curlin.
Mr. President, motion is to receive with regret the resignations of David Kurland and Carrie Mathers Kurland.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Yes,
Withdrawing his request.
okay. All right, we will skip over that one then. Next up, we have a reappointment for Ms. Ellen Vadney on the Board of Canvassers.
Motion to reappoint Ellen Vadney to the Board of Canvassers.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And then we have another Dog Park Committee reappointment.
Motion to reappoint Jennifer McGinley to the Dog Park Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next up, we have our new business. And we have our presentation of our fiscal year 2025 audited financial statements. Welcome back, Mary. Thank you for all your help in getting this done on time and into the state on time. I believe we were the first town to get them in.
You were, and I believe there, at this time, or at least as of the end of December, there may have only been 8 submitted.
Yeah, there's a few towns that haven't done last year, so we won't go there.
That is correct. There are a few 24s that are still out there. None with our firm at the moment, but there are definitely a few
Right.
24s still out there. But thank you for having me here again this evening. I really want to thank your staff as well, your finance staff, and certainly your administrator. They are a great help with getting this audit done and getting it done timely, as well as Chris at the school department. All of the information is provided to the firm timely. All the answers are answered timely. So it's a great team effort. So thank you. So I'll go through the financial statements as I have in prior years. I know you all have it in advance, so if anyone has any questions, you can certainly jump in and ask the questions as I go along. Again, it's 200+ page documents, so I'm not going to bore you with all of the details on it, but I will go through it with some degree of explaining the information in the statements themselves. So the statement itself is set up in the same format as it's been set up for the last number of years. There's an introduction section, which includes the transmittal letter, because as you remember, your financial statements are submitted to the GFOA for certification, and you have each and every year received that letter of excellence or the certificate of excellence from the GFOA. So you received it again for your FY24 financial statements, and I believe the town has since submitted the 25 financial statements. So that's what's included in the introduction section. The next section is the independent auditor's report. That's where we opine on the financial statements. And again, you have a clean opinion here. Management discussion and analysis is where management has the opportunity to write in layman's terms a summary of the results of the 24 audit, and in some instances, comparing some of that data to the 23 audit. That section may change or is changing to some extent with a new GASB 103 that has been awarded and approved by the GFOA and will be effective for the 26 audit. So you may see some changes in the format going forward. The basic financial statements include the statement of net position and the statement of activities. That's the accrual basis statements that are included in your financial statements. The fund financial statements is what all of you are really familiar with. That's your general fund, that's your school unrestricted fund, and then all of your capital project funds and special revenue funds. The notes are a requirement. They really describe more in detail of all of the basic financial statements that we just spoke about, and we'll talk about a couple of those notes as we go through the document itself. And then the required supplementary information for the town. Here, it would be the budget and actual for both the general fund as well as the school unrestricted. And it will be all of the information on each of the pension plans that the state maintains, as well as the town pension plan and the other post-employment benefit plan. So that's what's included in your RSI. And then the state of Rhode Island requires you to include supplementary information. And here it is the summary of, or the detail, I really should say, of all of the funds that are maintained by the town. So you'll see a section on the town special revenue funds, the school department special revenue funds, the same with the capital projects, the custodial funds, the permanent funds. They're all described in the detail of the financial statement. Because you are a community that is a comprehensive financial statement, you're required to include statistical information, and that information is financial in aspect for the majority of that statistical information, but it also includes some demographic information that's provided by the town, and it's unaudited. So as I said, the introduction section, next. Sorry. As I said, the introduction section includes the transmittal letter that is prepared by the town and included in the document. Again, because it's a submission to the GFOA, the organization chart is included, as well as a listing of all of you in terms of the elected officials, both for the town side and the school side. And we include a copy of the prior year certificate. And you will see that on the next page. So I guess next. The financial statements have 2 report letters. Again, the same report letters that you would normally see. The first report letter is where we opine on the financial statements themselves. So whether we really state that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the town. So we don't look at 100% of all the transactions. We select the transactions based on a concept of materiality. We look at those transactions and we opine that in this instance, and in all instances here within the town, that your financial statements fairly present the financial position of the town. There's also a second report in the report. It's called an internal control report. In your case, it's on page 202 of the financial document itself. And it is a report that reports on the internal controls of the community as well as compliance with laws and regulations. And so again, in both instances, the town received no findings and have an unmodified or clean report. The next 3 slides, I think you've seen them in the past. Our next 4 slides, I think you've seen them in the past. It just takes the report letter itself and breaks it down into the opinion paragraph. If you remember back, not last year was the first year the opinion paragraph changed where it starts the report itself. In prior years, you'd find the opinion as the last paragraph of the report. But again, here we're stating that the financial statements that we're presenting here, or that you're presenting here, because in essence, they're your financial statements, have no findings and refer to the respect of material respect that they are in compliance with generally accepted governmental accounting principles. Just a couple of things to point out. Again, the responsibility of management in these financial statements. You know, a lot of times communities and the public forget that the financial statements are the community's financial statements, and they think they're the auditor's financial statements. But remember that we're just opining on these financial statements and that they are the work of your staff, who again have worked diligently to put together the information necessary to provide this. Realistically, in the town of Portsmouth, you really should be proud of the fact that you have very few audit adjustments. And the couple of audit adjustments that you did have this year related to new GASBs that were put into place that needed the adjustment into the general ledger for the government-wide statements as opposed to the fund statements. So what you receive from the finance department on a monthly or quarterly basis regarding the finances is quite accurate and doesn't need adjustments at year end. Again, our responsibility is to opine on these statements and in terms of the statements that are also required, the required supplementary, I gave you a little bit of an analysis of that already. It is the budget comparison for the school department as well as the town, and it's the pension and OPEB related disclosures that are included in it. And the supplementary information is just what we described. It's the combining individual statements as well as what's referred to as the MTP2, which is a report that the town submits to the state for verification, and it's included in the document here. Basically, what that report does is it allows the state to compare the same data in the same format with all of the communities in the state. And it's referred to the MPT2 report. And it's included in this report as simply an addition to the supplementary information. And then I spoke briefly about the internal control report that's on page 202, as I indicated. That is where we are stating that you are in compliance with, you have good internal controls, and you're in compliance with laws and regulations here within the town. So the financial statements, once we get past the management discussion and analysis, so again, that is the section of the financial statements where the town has the ability to write in layman's terms a summary of what occurred over this past year. And that particular MD&A, as we refer to it as, is very similar from community to community. So what happened back in the day, and I may have said this last year to you, but what happened back in the day when this GASB was originally put in place, this was intended to be written in a very narrative format. And it is, in the sense that it is set up in that way. But what has turned out over the years is it's turned out to be more of a template, and everyone follows the template. So in a lot of instances, there's not a lot of narrative in it. So one of the things that this new standard is going to do is going to require the town to have more input in the MD&A. So the financial statements basically begin on page 15 of the report. So the statement of net position is the statement where the primary government, which is all of your town funds, get together with the business type activity or enterprise funds, are combined and reported on the accrual basis of accounting. So that basis of accounting is slightly different because we're going to pick up assets and we're going to pick up debt than the governmental funds that you will see in the basic financial statements. So just a couple of things to point out here. Your capital assets, you had $7.3 million placed in service this year that were part of the construction in progress last year. Information on those capital assets can be found in note 5 on page 51. Another thing to point out here is your receivables that were due for your property taxes at the end of last year were 1.3 million, where this year they're 1.4 million. So no significant change in the receivables. The collections from your tax collector has done well. You have a few dollars worth of taxes paid in advance this past year, but for the most part, you're very consistent with your collections from one year to the next. Moving on to page 16, that would be your liabilities and your net position. Your liabilities here, your largest liability, of course, is going to be your bonds and notes. Those are going to be found on page 7, or note 7 rather, on page 51. There was no new debt. The town did not take out any new debt in the fiscal 25. They had about $3 million worth of payments that were scheduled to be paid and were paid timely. The net pension liability decreased from 68.7 million to 61.3 million, and the details of that can be found on page 98. What else can I tell you? The total net position increased from a negative 39.3 million to a negative 29.5 million. Some of that has to do with the increase in the net investment in capital assets. That was about $2 million. And again, that's because you had no new debt this year. And you placed in service the last of, or not the last of it, because you still have some construction in progress, but a chunk of that capital project for the school project you placed in service. And I think that was a little bit over $7 million this past year. The deferred American Rescue money, that's, as you know, that's your opera money that you've been spending down, that you were required to spend the rest of it down this past year. You had a liability at the end of last year, or a deferred amount at the end of last year of 1.3 million. As of June, it was at 663,000. And I'm assuming it was completely spent by December 31st, which was the deadline for it to be completely spent. This year, right?
No, 26. We
Right,
got to the end of this fiscal year, this calendar year.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, so June, you still had 600,000.
Right.
June-
We have
right.
through the end of 2026.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. That's
So-
correct.
We haven't spent it all yet, but we have it all allocated to be spent.
Perfect. Perfect. So moving on, page 17 and page 18 is the statement of activities. It's where you break out the expenses against the charges and operating and capital grants to come to the net cost, if you will, of governmental activities. And then you offset that with those general revenues, primarily in the town here, are going to be your real estate, personal property taxes, and then of your abatements, which is $64.8 million this year as compared to $62.4 million in the prior year. And your state aid to towns, which is 3.7 million this year. So moving on to your fund financial statements. Yes, let's see. I always like to do this without the slides, and you know what that does for me. So your governmental funds, this is what you do your budgeting from. So these are your governmental funds. They're your general fund, your unrestricted school fund. In this particular case, based on the format that is required for determination by the governmental standards for major funds, your school bond project is still considered a major fund. And then your non-major funds is your aggregated town special revenue, school special revenue, town and school capital projects, as well as your permanent funds. So a couple of things to point out here is this past year, your committed amount, the council passed an order to appropriate as committed some portion of the fund balance. And in this case, it was calculated to be $285,680 for OPEB and pension. The school bond, as we spoke about just briefly, in FY '24, you had $11 million left of fund balance. At the end of '25, you have $3.7 million, and that's because that project is continuing to be spent down. As far as your non-major funds, all of your funds, $7.7 million of the 7.9 basically are considered restricted. You have unassigned of $97,000 worth of deficits, and you can see in note 3 on page 48 that list of those funds that had expenditures that exceeded their revenues for the fiscal year '25. On page 21, it's what is referred to as the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is basically your profit and loss. You can see here, again, the biggest increase on the revenue side was your property taxes, going from 62 million to 64.8 million. On your expense side, the largest increase for the most part is going to be in two areas. It's going to be, of course, in school. The school expenditures in fiscal '24 were 44.8 million, and in fiscal '25, they're 46.8 million. And then the other increase, or the other substantial difference, is going to be public safety. So public safety, and you know all this because you pass the budget and you see the expenses on a regular basis. So this is really no surprise. Public safety increased from 14.9 to 16.1 million. Now, the next group of funds are referred to as the proprietary funds. These are what are the enterprise funds. So the only thing I will bring to your attention here, because there's not a significant change in these, except that, as you know, you have a new program. That's your curbside collection program. And in this fiscal year, fiscal '25, you had revenue of $1.3 million. You only expended $1,000 worth of expenses. And so this particular fund had an ending fund net position of $1.3 million. The transfer station had $400,000. It started the year with $400,000 worth of equity. It did have expenses that exceeded what you brought in for the transfer station this past year, showing a current year shortfall of $152,000, ending the year with $291,000 in equity. Any questions so far? Okay. The last group of funds are your fiduciary funds. So these are the funds that you hold on behalf of others. So your major fiduciary funds, of course, are your employment benefit trust funds. That's a combination of the pension trust fund and the OPEB trust fund. The detail of those can be found on pages 99 and 100. And then you also have some monies that are being held on behalf of others in the custodial funds. And those funds are detailed on pages 174 and 175 if you're interested in reading the details of all of those, that's where you can find them. On the custodial funds, the largest one is the soil erosion fund. And that is on page 175. So following the basic financial statements are the notes to the financial statements. So as I indicated earlier, they are really in the document itself to give the reader more information with regard to a lot of the accounts that we just spoke about. So as I indicated earlier, the capital assets are going to be found in note 5. That will detail the capital assets and the depreciation for the town. So that's where you will see the $7 million placed in service for the construction in progress. And then the small amount that you're holding in your business type activities. Note 7 describes each of your pieces of debt that you have outstanding. And again, in fiscal 25, you had no new debt that you placed in service. So it is really the same debt and the amortization of those debts or the payment of those debts, both the lease obligations as well as the bonding for this fiscal year. Note 55, I should say page 55, which is going to be note 9. That's your interfund activity. So that's where you're having interfund activity with all the other fund types. So between the general fund and the unrestricted school fund, you have activities back and forth with the special revenue funds as well as the proprietary funds. But what we added to the document itself to help it to be a little bit more transparent and understandable to the readers, because this question has come up, is on the transfers back and forth. The biggest transfer, of course, is the general fund, $40 million to the school. But the other transfers that existed this past year, we labeled them together with the town and identified them in a legend. So you can see what the purpose of those were. So the $800,000 from the school fund was really to transfer the 2022 Series E bond interest. 4 would have been the $1.9 million in the town capital project. That was to fund capital improvements, and then the remaining deficit, remember that deficit that you've been paying down for years, the remaining deficit for the 12-13 warrant. So that information we added to that note just to make it a little clearer to the reader as to what the transfers were for. Note 10 has been required over the years. That is the detail of the fund balances. The debt service, as you know, would be the school bond. On the school or on this town special revenue, the largest surplus would be the Flower Wind project. So you've got $500,000 in that fund balance account, as well as the impact aid fund. That fund you have $659,000, and those are all described in much more detail in the supplementary section of the document. And then for the public safety, it's Fund 274, and the majority of that is the Public Safety Capital Fund. So that's where you've got some surpluses still in those funds available to be spent. And then on the town and the school capital project side, those details are further explained in the supplementary information. And on the town side, on the school side, of the 1.5 million, 1.4 is phase 2 that has been approved. Following that are all the notes as they relate to all your pension plans. So you have a multiple number of pension plans. In addition to the town plan, you have the municipal plan, the teacher plan, you have the survivor benefit plans. You have a number of plans. And so that information is all detailed there for you. And then, as I indicated, the detail of all the funds are further back in the supplementary. The only other page that I'll just bring to your attention, because I think it's important to, is in the section of required supplementary, the budgetary comparison is going to start on page 104. And as I indicated earlier, most of what you can see here is going to be information that you have already been provided by your finance team on a regular basis. But again, we tried to, this year, put in some legends, if you will, for all of the amendments to make it a little bit more transparent and answer questions maybe before they're asked in terms of where the transfers came from and what they were for. So we included that information, and that legend is on the bottom of page 106. So if anyone has any questions. And in fiscal 25, from a budgetary point of view, you had a surplus of 571,000. On the school side, same information is provided in terms of their original budget, their final budget, as compared to their actual results. And here, the school actually had expended $683,000 more than they had budgeted. And so they had a $683,000 deficit this year. It didn't bring them into a deficit because they did have fund balance going forward or coming into the year of 1.3 million. So they still have a surplus, but they did transfer some monies out for their capital needs, and they were using fund balance to do that. Any questions?
So just to clarify that, the school spent more money than they budgeted, but they did not end the year in a deficit because they had money. Specifically, we're talking about the roof replacement.
That's correct. That's correct. So that's,
They didn't overspend the budget that they originally had, but since we had a major catastrophe at the roof, they did spend more money than they were originally allocated.
that's correct. So if you were to again, look at, I think it's 106, when I go back, they had a surplus on their revenue side of 210,000. They did overspend their expenditures by 156, but what you're speaking to is this $900,000 that they used out of their fund balance for that repair.
Mr. Gleason.
Thank you. Could you go back to slide 14? 14? Yeah, 14. And at the risk of sounding ignorant, I apologize. I just.
Please don't,
If you
because
have
I
to-
talk too fast too, so go ahead.
There's so much you're talking fast. Some of the stuff goes.
A lot of
Flies
numbers.
over.
A lot of numbers.
God bless those people that get into this profession. So, the first statement of the town's net position increased by $1.9 million for governmental activities and increased by 317 for a combined increase. So I don't get an increase, or I actually get a decrease. So help me understand that. And maybe you can tell me where that is in the actual audit. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does, but I think that I might have an error in that.
And if I add the two numbers, I get 2.2 million, and I don't know if that's a correct number or not.
Well, I really apologize because that page, I don't think was updated by my staff. So I do apologize. So if you go to page 18,
18 in the audit book.
in the audit book. The governmental activities, the net position change, the increase was 6.9 million. And the business type activities, the increase was 1.1 million for a total increase of 8,059,000. So that paragraph didn't get updated for some reason.
Okay, yeah, 8,059,448.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. I apologize for that.
It's okay. I just, it looked kind of funny. Totally good with these numbers, but just didn't jive.
No, I do apologize.
But-
And again, on the town side, some of it had to do with paying down the debt and no new assets. So you had no new assets, no new debt, you paid down debt. So that's why you had the increase, basically.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Shahadi? So again, our surplus on the town side at the end of the year was 571,000. We took half of that, which is the 285,
That's correct.
and we're putting 40% and 10% for
For
away
the OPEB and the pension.
pensions.
That's correct.
And we finally got rid of the dreaded 12 and 13 warrant last year.
And that's gone. You do have, if you, I don't remember what page it's on. You
Yeah.
do have two small, deficits that you probably should take care of as well. They're back in 2009
Yeah,
warrant.
we'll have to clear those up with the.
There's a couple of
See if they've spent that money or not.
small amounts that should probably get cleared up, because they're just gonna get carried forward from year. And that's it.
Not as big as the,
Oh, no, the
$8
the
million
12, 13 one
13, yeah.
was a problem.
yeah, I
Exactly.
don't remember off the top of my head, but I think they're both around like 29,000 or something like that, 27,000 and.
Yeah, they're very small.
Yes.
They're very small amounts.
I believe there's some questions from Mr. Grieve behind you. I don't see any from council at this point, but we'll ask a few questions and
Okay.
hope to get you out of here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, as always, if, I know it's a big document, believe me, and I know I talk fast sometimes, but if any of you have any questions, you can either contact me directly, or through the finance office.
You can read.
Yes,
Sorry,
you.
have my mic on.
Mr. Grieve.
Tom Grieb, 110 Third Drive. I'd like to do something a little different this year, if you'll indulge me. I have a handout, and I'd like to give it to Ms. Blank and just have it, it'll get all the way around the corner to Ms.
Hand it to-
Beatty, if that's
hand it to the
okay.
Clerk and see,
I
you'll
will.
need one for the record. So
I'll certainly do that.
just give them to the clerk and she can hand them around. Spending too much money on paper. Very thick.
Um, This year, I would like to draw your attention to an issue in the audited comprehensive annual financial report, which I will from now on call the audit, that deserves closer scrutiny. Not because it reflects a single year problem, but because it suggests a developing structural concern that has largely gone unexamined. The audit stated on page 21 that there was a year-end general fund balance or fund balance of approximately $12.7 million, and that there was an operating surplus of roughly $600,000. On its face, that is quite positive. However, elsewhere in the audit, on page 55, it shows that the general fund owes approximately $7.6 million to other town funds, primarily special revenue funds. This interfund obligation increased by about $2.6 million in fiscal year 2025. If you look at the general fund total obligations to other funds, the second column on the handout you have, you see that for the last 6 audits, it has steadily increased from nothing in 2020 to the present amount, $6.7 million in just 5 years. Increasing interfund borrowing of this magnitude, particularly without prior disclosure of the source and use of the funds and a repayment method, raises serious transparency and sustainability concerns. Large and continually growing loans to the general fund is typically an indication that other town funds are being used to support general fund operations rather than being applied to their intended purposes. When that occurs, a significant portion of the reported fund balance is obligated for repayment of those funds, of those loans, and it is not truly unrestricted and available for general appropriation. As a result, the town's actual unrestricted and available financial capacity may be substantially less than the headline fund balance in the audit that the audit suggests. It could even be below the ordinance mandated minimum fund balance, which is set at 8% of the previous year's budget. While the audits have presented the numbers, neither this audit nor any prior audit has alerted the council to this emerging issue or its potential policy implications. Without that information, you as policymakers have no practical way to assess the borrowing's impact on the individual funds involved, nor to understand how the repayments could affect upcoming budgets. The reported operating surplus also needs to be viewed cautiously. While the general fund shows an approximate $600,000 surplus last year, the outstanding interfund obligations increased by $2.6 million during the same period. In other words, the surplus did not actually translate into increased discretionary financial capacity for the town because it coincided with an even greater increase in borrowing by the general fund. This is not an accounting issue. This is a governance issue. Interfund borrowing is allowed and can be appropriate for short-term cash management tool. But when it, as shown in the handout, becomes systemic, grows substantially year after year after year, and lacks the transparency of any formal oversight, it obscures the town's true financial position and limits informed decision-making by the council. I would therefore recommend several steps to strengthen the fiscal accountability and transparency. First, that any future borrowing by the general fund, including interfund borrowing, require explicit council approval.
I'm going to stop you there for a second so we can all get on this.
I'm almost done.
All right.
Please. Second, at the next council meeting, that the interfund obligations of the general fund be clearly identified by individual fund, year borrowed, what borrowed for, and the repayment plan, if any. Taken together, these steps would not only improve transparency, but also give the council and residents a more accurate and reliable picture of the town's true financial condition. That will support sound budgeting, long-term fiscal stability, and properly informed decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm hoping to be able to clear this up quickly. I believe the term general fund is used relatively loosely in the accounting, and there's two separate general funds. There's a general fund that is our bank account that we pay our bills with every day. And then there's an unrestricted general fund, which is the $12,659,139. And I'm going to get corrected by Mary if I'm wrong. And the funds due from others are in our checking account general fund that would go to pay down debts that we have. And that we really do have $12 million in our general fund, and we're not using any money to pay down debts with that, or borrowing money between to pay down. But I'll let Mary explain it, hopefully better than I did. And you have to do it at the microphone, so all the folks at home and the children at sea can hear us.
Yes, that is correct. So if you, again, look on page 55, if you look on page 55, you will see where we're disclosing the due to and due from other funds. So I will just use the town special revenue is a portion of the $7 million. It's $4.6 million. If you go to the special revenue funds that start on page 136, you'll notice that it is the pooled cash accounts. So none of your special revenue funds have individual cash accounts. So as you just indicated, the checking account is one checking account. So if you look at any one of these funds, starting on page 136 for the special revenue funds, they all say due from other funds because they're being utilized as part of pooled cash and the pooled cash account. And you'll notice that none of them have any cash. So it's not a loan situation where one fund is borrowing against another fund. It's that you're using one combined pooled cash account in the general cash account. And each one of these funds that you have are utilizing a pooled concept in the due to, due from account. So it is really not, as Mr. Greaves indicated, a loan situation. You're not borrowing money. It's part of the pooled cash, and it's cash in those accounts. And the same would be true looking at page 55 for the town capital projects as well as the school capital projects. That's another 1.4 million of the total and 1.6 million of the total. And the curbside collection is a perfect example. That doesn't have its own cash account. And so that is also part of the due to, due from account. Did that help?
It helps me.
Okay.
That we do have $12,659,139.
Somewhat.
And the $7 million, $7.5 million due to other funds is in a separate account. And have some of the money, or has the money there to pay it. We just haven't paid it yet. Like you mentioned, the $1.3 million.
It's a perfect example because
We
it's
have-
by itself.
Right. We had $1.3 million at the end of the year because everybody bought their well, not everybody. Most people bought their stickers for their barrels. And it was sitting there as a fund, and now it's been expended. So we would expect that $7.5 million has gone down a lot because we've had to pay the vendor.
Correct.
Mr. Grebe.
Okay. That slight difference in height. That does explain what's happening, but it doesn't explain the fact that the money. Let me give you an example. You, Mr. Hamilton, many years ago, start a thing where we would take any leftover snow removal money and put it into a fund. And we would use that fund for years, probably like this year,
Probably.
when we would go over the snow removal budget, which is hard to do in June. And that would smooth out the ups and downs over time so that we didn't have us going into the fund balance to get money for an emergency purpose because we just had too much snow.
Or shifting money between departments to pick up that slack.
If you look at the special revenue fund, which you set up, there's $233,000 in it, which is close to the cap, I think you set, of 250.
Correct.
However, if you then look further into the details, no cash is in that fund. The value of that fund is an IOU from the general fund.
I'm going to let Mary explain it to you again. There is a general fund. And then there's and then there's our rainy day fund. We're going to stop with the general fund. There's a general fund, that's our checking account. Then there's the rainy day fund, which is the $12,659,000.
That's right.
That is separate. That is on its own. That is not being touched, and we're not borrowing against that to pay any other bills. That restricted account of $239 is sitting in whatever bank account that we have it sitting in, or money market, and is there and available for us to take
Okay,
out and utilize.
I beg to differ with you because I
Okay.
believe that $2.7 million is sitting there. It truly is sitting there, but it's sitting there because other funds have been borrowed to put the cash there And that cash,
So are you accusing the town and staff of, I don't know, a Ponzi scheme is what it sounds like that we're.
no, I'm not at all. What I'm saying is that we have increased this borrowing year after year, and that becomes, I can see where you use this very much like your snow removal to smooth things out, and do, short-term, cash needs, cash flow needs.
We're not doing any short-term cash flow needs in between accounts. Mary, I don't know if you can explain this better, but we have revenue that comes in, whether it be from taxes or fees, and they pay the bills. At the end of the year, whatever is left over goes into that general fund balance, which is
Well, then-
our,
Yeah, yes. And if you look at the sheet that I gave you, the sheet that I gave
I'm
you,
looking at the sheet that you gave me.
okay. I've got to get my copy of it here.
Your sheet essentially says that our fund balance is actually $5 million and not,
No, I don't know whether it is or not because I don't know what's restricted and unrestricted.
I know that it's $12,659,139 is in our unrestricted fund
Okay.
balance.
My point here is that in 2020, we had a $9.3 million, $9.3 million general fund balance, or fund balance.
Mhm.
Today, we have 12.659.
Correct.
That's, roughly $3.3 million more.
Mhm.
Yet, the borrowing that has happened,
There's no borrowing against the general fund. I think that's where you're confused.
it's not borrowing against the general fund, it's borrowing from the other funds like your snow removal fund.
No.
Yes,
Okay. I'm gonna ask the accountant,
Okay.
the CPA who does this. But we are not borrowing against any other funds. Bring it down again, Mary. Thanks.
Exactly. You're not borrowing against any other funds. You don't have, and rightfully so, because the accounting for it and the workload would be, the hours would be crazy. If you look at the general fund, you've got $20 million worth of cash. That $20 million, if you want to do the math here, takes 7.5 of it, and that goes to all these other funds that we're talking about. And so what you would be left with, right, is you would be left with approximately $13 million worth of cash. The receivables equal the payables. That's your $13 million worth of fund balance. Does that make sense?
That you've rounded up, but yes.
Right. Because I'm obviously rounding out the receivables and the other payables. But if you look at that due to, due from account, in essence, that's the cash that's sitting in the investment accounts that you have here in the town, as you described earlier, the one bank account, for the $20 million. That reflects all of the cash that is assigned to all of these other funds. So utilizing this snow removal fund that we're talking about, I couldn't find it real quickly in the document, but I'm sure it's here. That fund would have no cash, but it would have a due to, due from account. So in this case, it would have a receivable account, and that would represent the cash that is sitting in the bank accounts. That is one bank account, or, there's more than one, but in the bank accounts of the town. So it's not,
Ms. McDowell,
So
you got a
if-
question, or you're gonna help us iron this out?
I wish I could help you iron it out.
What you're saying is the general fund,
Mr. Grieve,
what you're saying is the general fund is really 20
$20
million,
Mhm.
which is the 7,000,006 plus the 12 million.
That's correct. If you take out the other receivables and
Okay.
payables. That is
So
correct.
there's another fund, which is not reported on in the,
Yes, because the receivable, if you go to page 55, it shows you, well, just use your curbside collection. It's the easiest one to look at, because it's one fund,
But curbside collection is different because that's being paid out.
but it's the same thing. It doesn't show the cash. It shows the due to, due from account.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. The cash is in this 20 million because that's where all the cash is held. But if you look at that curbside collection, you're going to see that it has, and I'll show you.
It seems to me that, especially because they're both from general fund, we ought to. At least-
You can name them as you wish, but.
Well, but having both of them the same name is.
Confusing. Yes.
Thank
I understand that. But to your point, Mr. Grieve, if we're looking at this, the 7.5 and the 12.6, next year we would expect, well, it probably wouldn't be. We would expect, no, because the curbside is in there, so I would expect it to remain flat unless there's other accounts that maybe interest has built on. It's gonna be, actually, I would think it's gonna go down because I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I agree with you that 239 is probably gonna get tapped into this year for the snow removal. We're pretty close. We might tap into that $500,000 that's in there as well. Yes,
That separate and in,
correct.
okay.
So we'll use the example as perfectly as she just played out, and we're gonna round, but there's $20 million in the checking account. 12 of it, we can do whatever the heck we want with it. 700 we have to do for specific things like curbside. Well, the 500, we can do whatever we want with it. But the curbside, the whatever. So it's in the general fund, but it is somewhat restricted for the most part. Because it is allocated for other, like our capital improvement fund, the restricted fund, and then there's a handful of those little accounts that are in there, like the cemetery fund and stuff like that we don't touch. The clerk's records keeping fund, right? Is that all those? And it is the change from 2020 that this was more needed to be accounted for? Is that why we had zero back then? And we started accounting for it in 2021? Or,
You go back. I can answer that because if you go back to those audits, the cash is actually in funds.
Okay.
That's what's so confusing about it.
And-
Cash was in the fund and now only an IOU fund.
so I'm gonna say that's because the people who do accounting, and this is not a knock on you, Mary, like to make things confusing so we can't figure out what they're doing so they keep their jobs. Well, we will, and hopefully we can show it to you back and forth and go from there. Don't go too far. Mr. Fitzmaurice, you have a couple questions. Mary, you want to start? Okay.
Well,
Mr.
before,
Fitzmaurice, have a seat.
well,
Thank you.
well, so my idea of interfund borrowing is that it is common practice with municipalities. But my other familiarity with it is it's always like paid back or you get back to a zero. So I'm just trying to figure this out, that in 2020, we had a zero. And it increases each year. I mean, I don't even know, I mean, you're, I don't know how you even get this stuff, but I'm taking it that
It's-
you've gone back to audits and done this. So I guess my only question is for me to understand, how does it increase?
Because we have started other programs that have added into that account that we don't, so the enterprise funds are in there. So if there's a balance in the enterprise fund at the end of the year, which there would be because everybody's paying their fees for their stickers for both the transfer station and for
Right.
the curbside, plus Prudence Island, plus there's 500 for the,
Wind.
that's always been there for the wind turbine, not wind turbine, yeah, South Coast. So next year, I would expect it to be somewhere in the same because people are going to be paying for their sticker fees before the end of the fiscal year. So that money will be there to be paid out. And if we looked at that number right now, if we had due from other funds, it would be down because people aren't paying their fees anymore and we're actually paying the vendor. So that 7.5 number is probably somewhere around, I don't know, with the both funds, probably around 4.5 at this point in the year, because we've used our checkbook to pay those bills.
Confused, but.
If you, taking a loan to me is taking a home equity loan, buying $30,000 worth of windows with it, which really hurt, to pay for those windows. And I had them in my account, my checking account, for the time that they were doing the work until they were done. And when they were done, I wrote the check to pay those bills. The money that people spent to get curbside pickup or the transfer station sticker was sitting there at the end of the year on June 30th, which is when these numbers are done. Come the next day on July 1st, we had to make payments and that number went down. I can't tell you what the number went down to, but that's
So,
the checking account
all
in a
right,
nutshell.
so
My-
just. Yeah,
So instead of having 150 bank accounts, the town has a handful of bank
Yeah.
accounts, so they can invest the money and get the best returns. And so by doing that, they have these due to, due from accounts on the books, as opposed to having cash in every one of these funds and having separate bank accounts. So could they have had a bank account set up for, we'll go back to curbside. Could they have set up another bank account and put those receipts specifically in another bank account? Yes, they could have. But instead, they're using a handful of accounts so they can get the best interest. So all the cash is in the $20 million as a general fund in the general banking accounts and not in the individual accounts. Now, if you go back to 20, the thing back in 20, and I would have to go back and look, but I will believe that this schedule is prepared properly. They were including the cash in all of the funds, but in some funds, particularly funds where you expend the money first, and then you're looking for reimbursement from the state, there were negative amounts. And the state doesn't allow you to have negative amounts, right? Because you can't overspend cash. But realistically, you could if you had a fund or a grant that you received the authority to spend but hadn't gotten reimbursement yet. So there was, some that were negative, some that were positive. They weren't specific bank accounts. So it made more sense to show all the activity in the due to and from account, show all the cash and all the investment in the one fund, meaning the general fund. So that's why when you look at the general fund, you've got $20 million worth of cash, but you only have fund balance of 12.
Yeah.
Makes more sense.
yeah, so that, see how over the years, on this sheet anyways, it's increased. So does that mean, it's going to continue to increase?
It just depends. So it increased particularly from 24 to
Because of
25 because curbside,
Curbside.
$1.3 million.
1.3, but.
So I don't know, next year, will it increase? It will definitely decrease if you're expending that 1.3. It will decrease if you spend the 200 and whatever you have in snow, but you could have another program that you could bring on board. You could have cash receipts prior to June 30, but not any expenditures. And so the same thing would happen. So
Which we will, because people will start paying for their stickers.
there you go. So you will again. So this year, the big increase, of course, was the 1.3. You also had the big increase the year you got your opera money. So in one year, you got your opera money, it came into the bank, but you didn't expend it in that year. You've been expending it over time, but that would have increased in that year.
Yeah, she hit the nail on the head, Ms. President. I mean, we're forgetting, I mean, there's impact fees which have grown, we established the public safety capital account. So you got your ambulance revenue going in there, you've got the ARPA money, the curbside money. And if you go back a number of years, which Mary eloquently explained, there was a time when we had well over 100 bank accounts. It was insane trying to manage that. And we weren't reaping the benefits of having one bigger account to leverage that money for the interest. This is another reason why our interest income has grown so heavily. So this is why we're doing it. So you're seeing zero due to froms because the money is sitting in the restricted fund balance. So the headings on Mr. Greaves' report really should say unrestricted fund balance plus restricted fund balance equals those two together. And those last two columns are really meaningless.
Hopeful.
Yes. It's clear as mud. Got it. Disagree.
The reason it didn't say that is because that's not identified in the audit.
Again,
It's very hard to do this if you don't have the information.
Right. I'll go back to
Which
those.
is why I come up here, and this was good information. But, I mean, don't take offense at somebody misunderstanding something that wasn't put down in the audit.
And I'll go back to those dastardly accountants doing things in a way that make us all confused. No offense, Mary. And Kayla.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Fitzmaurice.
President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court, and I'll be reasonably short. I agree with Mr. Hamilton. Terminology in these things is the devil. But I do suggest that not that we have over 100 accounts, but I do suggest that we have two separate accounts at least if we have two general funds. And one is restricted or partially restricted or whatever the terminology is, you can't spend it freely. And then the other one would be the general fund, which is the principal part of the budget, so that we can understand this business. But we don't have in our budgets a clear statement of where the money goes when it gets borrowed out of these funds or transferred out of these funds or whatever terminology we want to use. So we don't know where it goes, which is the problem, one of the problems. And that's why we get confused every year, if we get confused. But we have this discussion year after year, and it's usually associated with the special funds.
Maybe I'll try and explain it a different way. We have two general funds. One is our checking account that we do day-to-day business with, that we pay our bills, whether it's to Staples or gasoline or whatever. And then we have a savings account, which is these accounts. And as we need to pay down these accounts, we move the money from the savings to the checking and pay them down. Am I confusing it more, Kayla?
Unfortunately, that's not quite true. We do have a general fund. What I process payables out of comes out of there. I do not have a segregated fund just for special revenue. If I were to do that, I would have to process two different vouchers every week. And it is displayed on our voucher listing, all the accounts that I do take out of. So say I take out of the public safety, that's account 274, that is displayed on my finance report. But accounting wise, it would be too difficult to just have a special revenue voucher versus a general fund voucher.
And when you do your monthly finance reports, it's listed on there with fund transfers.
All of
Always,
the accounts
yes.
are listed on there. And if I do a fund balance transfer, which I do not told by the town council, I do have a separate section in my report that says I am doing a transfer.
Like the $600,000 for the pension fund.
Correct.
When you make these transfers, especially in the restricted funds, what is the town's policy regarding oversight here? Is the council the one that makes the decision?
But, well, some of these funds aren't restricted.
Well,
They're enterprise funds.
understand, but still, if you're transferring it from one fund to
Yeah.
another,
Well, we'll use,
because we have,
we'll use the public safety fund. Whenever any money is asked to be expended, they come forth and say, we would like to buy a new ambulance for $350,000 and take it out of this fund. That is approved by this council, yes.
well, we can find that in the budget. It's a capital fund. So I'm talking about a lot of this, this one, what is it, one page, one. We've been up here talking about this for years. And we can't trace any of the money where it goes. So we don't know what happens if there's monies withdrawn from these things,
Which page?
as they decline or whatever the special fund starts at, 160. I think it's 160.
What page? 139?
Problem is, I'm also getting old enough where I can't read most of this.
That's why I use a computer and blow it up really big.
Um,
So if you're talking about special revenue funds, like the cemetery fund,
yeah, I am.
clerk's
Yes, sir, I am.
special records funds, I'm not
136.
making up off the top of my head.
Okay,
This is from memory.
36.
that's, so it doesn't appear to be the right number, page number, but it's in there somewhere. And it's a multiple pages, there's a number of lines, we go down through a number of pages and we just don't know where this stuff goes. If it is declining because of cash flow issues, that's one answer, which we've gotten in previous years. But if we're borrowing money from one fund and putting it in another fund, then that should show up somewhere in this budget.
We are not borrowing any money we are not robbing Peter to pay Paul. It is not happening. I can dispel that rumor or thought process at all.
Okay, so
Town is financially solid. We are not robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're not trying to, I hate to use the word Ponzi scheme, but we're not, it's a different word, but
well, I'm talking about line items, not the whole budget, but
Yep.
the, we're back to the same discussion that we have here every year when we bring forward a problem. Generally, we end up being told that we just misinterpreted the terminology. Or we didn't look at page 55 and we should have looked at page 128 or whatever the term might be. So,
when you look at things, and I'm going to go on to page 137. And you have your town special revenue funds broken out. So back up on 135. You have town special revenue
hang on
fund.
a second,
Yep.
135?
Start on 135. I'm going to try to explain it as best I can in general
Okay.
layman's terms.
Well, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I
I should be able to follow you. Go ahead.
Subheading, town special revenue funds. Where they came from, what they are, $2.32538 million. What we expend.
135?
Yep. Just the first column. I'm only going down the first column.
Okay.
What we spent them on. So we have all of our federal grants, charges, everything that was in that fund. Then we expended them. Biggest one,
Yeah.
$946,000 on a fire engine. So those are all lined out there. Those are within the budget. When Mr. Rayner brings those forward to us, they are enumerated in the budget. If you go down further to page 136, next page down, you'll see some of the balances that are still in there. So fireboat repair and maintenance has $29,840 in there. If the chief needed to repair the fireboat, he would say, I need to spend $5,000 of that $29,840 to buy a new engine for the fireboat. He would come to us, ask us for that money, and/or it would be
You-
put into Mr. Rayner's budget.
Are you looking
How
at the
much?
same one I am?
Yes,
You're the same
136.
document?
Yep.
Okay. Where's the fireboat?
right in the middle. Fireboat repair, maintenance. You blow that up a little bit bigger, Kathy?
Oh, okay.
please?
Thank you.
Wilmore.
I was on the left-hand column.
There we go. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I switched columns on you.
Yeah.
I stopped going down straight down.
no,
Yep.
it's fine.
So then the townwide contingency, which has been started, if there was a, I don't know, pick an event. We needed to go out and spend some money on something that wasn't in the budget, we would have to come forward and borrow money out of that. It would come to the council.
Okay,
There's no spending out of any of these accounts that hasn't been approved by the council, either in the budget process.
now,
Yeah,
when
like-
we appear not to ever approve, because I'm going to change a little bit here. It sparked a question I have. I don't recall transfers of funds between the town's municipal departments.
We
Right.
haven't done any in the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah,
We have in the past, and that goes back to the special revenue fund for the snow removal.
yeah,
At the end of the year, we'd be, oh, what are we gonna do to pay for that extra $100,000 in snow removal, or the extra $50,000 in overtime for X department? We would have to say, well. we had-
understand the snow removal
Right.
business.
But either way, we had a good year in snow removal, and it didn't snow at all, so to overcome the overtime, administrator would have to come to us in May or June and say, we have extra money in the snow removal, but we have to make up the deficit in overtime for the police department. So I'm asking to move that money from here to there. We haven't done that in years,
Okay. I
but
don't want,
yes.
I don't want to bother the council anymore with this discussion, but I would like to, I'm willing to listen to the town administrator.
May I just opine for one moment? I just wanted to clarify. When I spend, say, out of the fireboat account 203, there was a $640 charge on one of the vouchers tonight. I do not seek approval for $640. I just wanted to clarify that every time there's a small expense taken from these special revenue accounts, those do not need approval.
But
However, when I did when we did the radio replacement program and I moved funds from the general fund to create that program last year, I did seek approval for that.
And next year, when we have this 997,572 for property reevaluation we've spent over the past year, we typically put aside $100,000 or $50,000 a year to cover that cost when it comes up for the property reevaluation.
Yes,
We put
that away.
money a year aside every
Correct.
year to go into that fund so that when it comes up, we're not having a
Correct.
$150,000, $300,000
And it's earmarked
cost
especially for
for
that.
that. Correct.
All of that is things we understand just fine.
Just, if I may, Mr. President, just to clarify something. Obviously, you can track where we're spending the money. I mean, there's a number of important documents. The very first is the approved budget, right? So we're not spending money that hasn't been approved by the council in the budget process. The second is every meeting, you get the vouchers. The very first page of the voucher tells you what funds money has been expended from. And then if you want to know exactly what the money's being spent on, you go look at the individual vouchers. And if you look at the account line, the very first three numbers will tell you what fund it came from. So there's nothing being hidden here. And then the money that is being spent and accounted for is coming from the appropriate accounts that have been approved and set up by the council and also approved and authorized for spending in the council's annual spending plan. I don't know how else to say
No.
it.
I'm good. You got other questions, Mr. Fitzmaurice?
No, but I will say, just a closing comment, and thank you for everyone in their explanations. I say this every year, so I'll say it again this year. This audit and our budget are complicated beyond belief, and the average citizen doesn't have a prayer of figuring out anything by reading it. And God knows, Mr. Hamilton is correct in large part when he criticizes the accounting business because everything is labeled general fund. So that's a problem to begin with for the people like me that don't have an accounting degree. And that leads us into these problems a lot of the time. Many of these issues we figure it out before we get here. But it's, Yeah, anything to do with clarity is a virtue in this business. And the council and the administration should remember, and I remind everybody every year, that this audit is ordered by the charter, which is written by the people and is for the people, and the people should be able to read the damn thing. And that's not the case. We've been studying it for years and we still have our problems. So anything in the cause of clarity will be welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Fitzmaurice, I'll thank you because as Mary had mentioned, a lot of the suggestions that you've made in the past, we have put into these budgets to help clarify it better.
Yes.
But-
I should always acknowledge that every year. When we get to the budget, we will acknowledge it again. But it does improve year over year. And we have a far better budget. It's far easier to read than some other communities that I won't mention.
We have probably the easiest budget to read if you look across the areas. I mean, it's
I
a
have,
lot of catch-all categories and a lot of town budgets.
I have.
Yeah.
I have read them. Thank you.
Ms. McDowell?
Well, I was going to ask, I mean, you see his point, do you see his point about the confusion? And is there a way we can rectify this confusion going forward in maybe a small way? I don't know. It sure would help, I guess.
Well, we're pretty much limited to presenting the financial statements in the same format that pretty much every other community across the United States is presenting the financial statements. I mean, I suppose in terms of the reference to the general fund checking account and the general fund, I mean, maybe you rename the general fund checking account, at least reference to it, but it was what it is. I mean, the financial statements, what we did do this year, to go back to the comment that was just made on the transfers, is we did add, footnotes, both on the budget page and on the note to the financial statements with regard to the transfers so that you could see exactly what they were for as opposed to prior years where the requirement is really just the total. But we thought if we added those footnotes, it would help. And
I think the easiest thing in my head is if our general reserve fund was labeled the rainy day fund. But
we could,
can't.
I mean, we could work on
yeah.
doing
just-
that, but
Maybe you could just put
Exactly.
it in parentheses.
Yeah, right.
right. We could do that. We could help and do that.
Thank you.
But we do try to add something, so if somebody has an idea and they want to add it, as long as it's not in non-compliance with the reporting requirements, then we're happy to try to accommodate the town and add whatever disclosures we can help to make it easier.
Maybe just in your report that you give to us, say, this is the rainy day. And this is available going to or assigned to other funds, but is sitting in that rainy day balance, so to speak.
I think I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and we could potentially add to the note to the financials describing that,
Or just even your presentation next.
for that
February.
too, right?
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you. Mary. Mr. Grieve. And we'll put this. audit
Yeah,
to the
hopefully
vote.
put this to bed. I have one thing that I think will help me clarify in my mind how you're doing this, and it's really, I think, for Ms. Marsden. If you go to page 146, to the Mayflower Wind, 146,
Let my computer catch up.
to the Mayflower Wind.
Yep.
You notice that there's both the due from other funds and cash. Why would that happen based on what was being said before? This all goes into the checking account.
Great, so I don't know, there was, trying to think. There was studies being done where we were, told that if we paid the upfront cost of the 13,000, the company that, holds the Mayflower Wind, correct me, I don't know their name. South Coast Wind was to pay us back. So we paid the 13,620 and South Coast Wind is to pay us back to make us whole at the 500,000.
That's not cash though, is it? Isn't it? Oh, a receivable, I'm sorry. You're correct, you're correct. Okay, the receivable is, okay, that's what's coming in. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That being said, any other questions to the council? If none, do I have a motion to receive and place on file?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Mary, thank you very much again.
Thank you very much,
Hopefully
Mr.
we'll see
Hardy.
you next year. Let me find myself again in here. All right. New business number 2, Narragansett Electric and Verizon New England Incorporated asks permission to relocate pole 9 P19-90, 42 feet west of existing location and installing a 12-foot anchor at Fairview Lane. No. We're getting it out of the way.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
Yes, there is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Don't go too far. This is the big one for you now. New business number 3, decision on proposed plans for the 3S properties. We have in front of us the good, better, best strategy for the 3S properties to get something going there before corn gets planted again.
I'll go ahead and kick this
Alcohol.
off, Mr. President. So through this agenda item, we're asking for the council directions on how and whether to move forward with the development of the 3S sports fields. As people know, the town has owned this property for a long time with the intent of eventually creating multi-sport fields, primarily for soccer and lacrosse. Because the site is under a conservation easement and has some challenging soil and elevation changes, this isn't as simple as clearing the field and buying goalposts. There are permitting requirements with DEM and some significant site work that'll be involved. So at the council's request, Paul, the Director of Public Works, developed 3 conceptual options that range from a very minimal build-out to a more complete configuration. These options are planning level estimates. Final pricing would come through a formal RFP process, but they do give us a realistic sense of the scope and cost involved. From a staff perspective, we believe option 2 fields with a dedicated parking lot and access roadway, is the most responsible path if the council wants to proceed. Building a sports field without proper access and parking would likely create safety and operational issues and shift impact to the surrounding area. If we're going to invest in this site, it makes sense to do it in a way that is functional and sustainable. As we've heard, we do have $500,000 available in the South Coast Wind Host Community Account that could be applied towards this project. Any remaining balance could be incorporated into the upcoming capital plan as part of the fiscal year 2027 budget proposal. So the decision before you tonight is essentially whether to move forward with one of these options, and if so, to authorize us to begin the permitting, engineering, and procurement steps needed to bring back final pricing and implementation details to the council. So Paul will now brief the 3 options that we've come up with.
So because we are excavating and expanding in the more than 1 acre area, stormwater and DM permits are required. And because we're doing that, also retention ponds and field drains need to be added. So VHB's proposal is to do that, do all the permitting, the DEM permits, and all the drawings, the construction documents, the meetings and support and expenses. That would get us going, and they would do an RFP to put out for the final cost. All the options are listed there. The option 1 is for the 2 fields. Option 2 is for the 2 fields, a parking lot, and the roadway back to the parking lot. The 3rd option would be just adding a restroom to that area.
Yeah, that's the expensive part.
That's the expensive part.
The restroom and the septic tank and all that good stuff would be separate and away from this anyway, so we could do this in the stages that you have
Correct.
placed forth. Okay. The parking lot and roadway, we're planning on putting the parking lot and roadway behind the 2 fields? So
Yes.
closer towards Cog Shell, where people could,
Correct.
and Trinity Cemetery first, okay. And I know that is from personal experience of running through there 40 years ago, is some of the wettest areas in the back there.
Main and back.
Mr. Gleason, you set this, you kicked this snowball down the hill.
Oh, yeah, this has been a long one. For people that don't know, this started in 2007, had nothing to do with Mr. Rayner. He's just trying to finish this up like I am. And, you know, the main driver for me is that this was passed by the public in a bond referendum. You were probably sitting here at one point. No, you weren't in yet, okay?
I wasn't in yet. This predates even me.
Hey, that's a long time ago. So anyways, it's something that I would like to see happen. I appreciate all the work that's been done so far. Things haven't gone that smooth. We thought we could start bringing in some dirt and some seed. Then we ended up with somebody that planted corn again. Our tenant didn't get the memo. So anyways, it's just as well this process laid out like it has. My ideas, for what it's worth, as far as the parking goes, the plan has never been very affordable, and maybe that's why other councils have kicked it down the road. You know, to plant 500 arborvitae trees is going to be one expensive proposition, and that's what they were suggesting. The bottom line is, wherever this parking lot goes, the land trust doesn't want to see any cars from Sandy Point Avenue. So somehow we have to have a road that goes in to the property that can't be viewed from Sandy Point, is my understanding. So my thoughts was, to be able to save money, is to carve out the parking lot amongst all the overgrowth that's been there since 2007, you know, and avoid the wet areas, because the further you go south, you hit a pond area there. Not so much, it was laid out, it's dry in the middle. It just does not have good soil for putting a soccer field, which is why we've talked about moving it to a different location.
Correct.
And, you know, in that vein, we've put a plan in effect that has two fields that are parallel to Sandy Point. I mean, we could even explore the possibility of putting one field that's essentially north and then south of that, if the land topography was flatter. I mean, I'm just spitballing ideas, but the bottom line to me is, we need to get out and get an RFP to see what the actual dollars are going to be. You know, hopefully they're going to come in cheaper here, but we don't know. So we got to start that process. We could get the numbers back and they could be triple this, and we'd say, we can't do this, which I'm not expecting, but we have to start somewhere. So my thoughts are to go with the option 2. You could come back later and put in the restroom, but most of our soccer fields now have a porta potty, and I think that would be sufficient for 2 fields there, you know. So
Multiple
that's-
porta potties, so yes.
Multiple.
Yes.
Yeah, well, whatever. So that's my thoughts.
Would you
I'd
like
be-
to
I'd
make
be
that a
willing-
motion?
Excuse me?
Would you like to make that a
Yes,
motion?
definitely.
Yeah.
Mo-
Yep, that's okay.
No, I was gonna say, Paul, I would think if you're gonna have, soccer fields, grass and all that, you'd wanna have irrigation. And I see that the last one did, but nobody's priced out irrigation.
And
The-
it hasn't
I
been
know
priced out.
you gotta put in a water line, but they had a
The-
price down
the-
there for 220,000.
It wasn't priced out because the soccer association was gonna raise funds for that.
Okay. So it'll work without irrigation?
No, they would fund the irrigation portion of the 2
Oh, you can do
projects.
that after, but you'd have to put the water line in first.
Correct.
So
Well, I
that,
think-
you'd have to add that to the option 2 then, because that doesn't have the water line listed, I don't believe.
Mr. Rogers, if I may, I think the water line is for the restroom, a solid cinder block building. That if you went without option 3, which is why you see a $220,000 water line. You're gonna have some expense for a water line into the proposed irrigation line, but it would be lesser amount.
Correct.
Is that correct?
And that's if you still want to put in the restroom later on, we'd still need the
Yeah, I
water
was gonna
line
say
put
you
in
might
now.
Want to put the water line in now.
Well, there'll be a water line for the irrigation, but it won't be the water line that
But
we
it
need
would
for the
be- Probably
restrooms.
put a 3-inch in for
The
something like
water
that.
lines would probably be in 2 separate locations
Yes.
anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Ms. McDowell?
So the conceptual design that you've dealt with, you're, you're saying that this could change if you have the fields in different locations because of water issues?
I was saying it, and it's just a thought that, one of the things that's been brought up is there's a 15-inch difference, I believe, between one side of the field. So you've got to raise one or lower one. You got to get a flat playing surface. Excuse me. If in fact the field, instead of having the field here and here, and this field right here is flatter, you could look at that potential, but
So,
it's just a thought.
Yeah, and there's also issues with why you see soil and loam. The dirt itself is not very conducive to being drainage. It's kind of clay, get your feet stuck when you're walking in it kind of stuff. So to be conducive to really get the field to take and live for a long period of time, we need to bring extra loam and dirt in on top of what's already there. But if you go drive by and look, you can see the slant in the
Right.
cornfield.
so the figures that we have for these three different options, the first part of all of them are the same. But when we got these figures, is that by going to three different companies or just one company, or how do we get these figures, I guess? What was your thought process?
We got those figures from VHB who did the original plans. So we just got quotes from them. They're not exact.
So the engineering firms have their own estimators when they go out to do their
Correct.
projects, and they just kind of throw some numbers out there and then
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like I've gone to engineers for the same project and I get a variety of quotes. So we don't know whether this is high, low, or medium, right?
we'll get a variety of quotes back for the RFPs that will be here, here, and here. And then
Yeah.
you throw out the one that's incredibly high, you throw out the one that's incredibly low, and we usually go something in the middle,
Okay,
unfortunately, yeah.
We went with VHB because they did prior work and that would lessen the price on the quoting.
right. And of these costs here, is there anything that like DPW will be able to do to mitigate some of these expenses?
There's certainly a possibility, yes. Not that we have time to do it, but
What's that?
not that we have the time to do
We're
it.
not asking you to do it in wintertime. You won't miss some snow, hopefully, when we do this.
But, I mean, that is a possibility, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
If we have the machinery to do the job.
I think that's the biggest thing, is
That's
the
the-
amount of land that we're gonna have to move. You really need the equipment to
I
do
can
it.
just interject. It's-
Beyond the.
It's not just manpower, and don't forget, when we would be doing this, everybody in DPW is working right now, right? When they take their vacation times and their time off is when we would be doing this kind of project, one. And then second, that this requires excavating equipment, which we don't have, so we would have to procure it somewhere. So saying that we can do something, it's not like we can go dig fence posts. This is a big project, and it's a lot more than 15 inches. This is a
Yeah.
lot of dirt.
And it's just the time and our crew doesn't have expertise in this. It would take them twice as long to do a project than it would that somebody's already in the business of doing that.
Ms. Mike?
We did mention having porta johns. Is that a significant cost that we should also roll in or consider?
That would probably come under the recreation budget.
At last check, they're about $100 a month.
Yeah. Depending on how
Like
much,
Just
weekly
make sure
cleaning.
we're considering that and making sure we.
depending on how many times they're serviced.
Ms.
I just have a question as far as, once we get the RFPs and everything, this is probably a project for next year or next
Fall.
fall
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right now, just the DEM permitting is over 6 months.
okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Mr. Fiorillo is behind you. He'd like to say a few words. Our director of, or our chairman of the Parks and Rec Committee.
Hello, David Fiorillo, 45 Hamilton Drive, Chair of the Parks and Rec Committee. Just wanted to just throw my 2 cents in on this and thank Paul for doing all this work. I know we've walked the field once before to look at it. It is a tricky field to do this project. You know, we've walked it, we've looked at how wet the area is, no matter where you are on the 3S field. I know Dave was mentioning about possibly moving the parking to the left, I would say left of the cornfield where that brush is. I've walked through that field many times, well, around that. It's very wet. So I think no matter where the parking goes, it's going to be tricky. And I think these numbers are going to be a lot higher than what we're seeing. I'm all for the going forward with this 3S. Anything Parks and Rec related, I am all game for. What I'm here to talk about right now is this, but also I just want to just remind this council of the other recreational fields that are in need of repair before we decide to move forward with a new project. I think I've walked with, the baseball fields with the head of Sean Stalls, and there's a lot of repairs that need to be done to the baseball fields. They're down 2 fields to begin with. And I did see in here that possibly the $500,000 from South Coast Wind could be allocated to 3S, and that would be great. But I also think that that could be used for other recreational uses, considering the fact that, again, Little League is down 2 fields from it being taken away from the senior center and at Turnpike. I did have the chance to walk around the field, and I did mention this to Paul late fall, but there was a lot of fence repair that should be taken care of before any.
It's been brought to the attention of
Okay.
DPW and town staff, and that's going to be looked at. There were some things that were put off because there may have been some major changes on those
Yes.
fields, which
I-
are probably not going to happen. And good news is we may be able to move with other field options for Little League, but
Okay.
I don't want to spoil the surprise.
I love a good surprise. I just want to make sure that, I'm just bringing forward
Yep,
the fact that there is other needs. And I know there was also talk about the horse rink and the cow stall, and there's either repairs or we're taking down. I just was seeing that the money from South Coast, if rather than putting it all towards 3S, we should spread the love across the town and repair things before we start a new project. That's all.
Appreciate that.
That's it. Thank you.
We are keeping an eye on all of that stuff.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Gleason, you started a motion, but Mr. Reese cut you off.
So my motion would be to proceed with the proposed plan for option 2 for 2 playing fields on the 3S property, starting with utilizing the South Coast money.
I'll second your motion.
Any further discussion? Feel this is good use of the South Coast money. I think should have been $1 million, but we only got 500. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
On to new business 4. That I just clicked out, but I know it's about selection process for certain boards, Madam Clerk and Madam Planner. Until I get back to. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. It was about a year ago that there was an opening on the planning board, and I had asked that there be a policy that you interview the planning board members, and that had moved forward where the planning board people that had applied were interviewed, and that was exactly 1 year ago today. Fast forward to the latest opening, and I was hoping that the same process would move forward, and it seems as though I need to formalize a policy for the immediate boards that my department is liaisons to or immediately staffs. So I'm moving forward asking that we discuss and adopt a policy that I have prepared as in the world that we live in, the planning board, zoning board, and design review board really need to have members that have a skill set that not only helps me, but I can help them in terms of having a range of fields that maybe not you really know when a person of interest fills out on a letter of application or a resume. So I really ask that you interview these potential applicants, that they stand at the podium here and just process them, that you actually advertise a little bit more than just accepting the first person that submits an application, and that there be a better policy implemented. Hopefully you had the opportunity to read my memo. I am just trying to ask that you do this now because I thought I had done it last year, but it didn't get implemented the way I thought it had.
Mr. Reese?
Yes, are you going to go and review all the people that are presently on there to make sure they meet the same standards? I mean, that's
I don't
very
think that,
important.
I don't think
Otherwise,
that's necessary.
you could have conflicts, and that wouldn't be fair to the people that you're interviewing, that there's people on there.
I think this is a
maybe their
moving
peers.
forward basis, Mr. Reese.
Okay.
Ms. McDowell?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for bringing this policy forward. And I am into established policies and procedures for transparency purposes and for consistency purposes. So seeing this policy makes me feel that transparency and consistency is being addressed as to how we operate when it comes to committee appointments. We appointed a person to the planning board last year. We had the opportunity to speak with them and ask them questions. We appointed a person to the Zoning Board of Review in September. That person was present at our meeting to answer questions, and none was asked of him. He was appointed without discussion or comment. No policy was brought forth a year ago or in August until 2 people had applied for this vacancy. About a month ago, we accepted the resignation of a planning board member, and as past practice would have it, we accepted applications immediately. When these applications were submitted, there was no mention that there would be a new policy that we would be potentially working on, which may or may not affect the applicants. It is my understanding that 2 applicants applied and eventually were told, when they inquired about the delay, that the town was going to broaden the applicant pool by advertising and extending the time to accept applications. Definitely a diversion from past practice. This just doesn't feel right to me, as what happens in situations like these, there can be several interpretations move. And I have unfortunately heard a few of them, which does not bode well for the town. Rather than leave us open to criticism for the timing of this policy, I would like to suggest that we move forward with the applications that we have and ask the applicants to come in and speak to their qualifications and vote accordingly. Once that is done, we look at this policy with the hope of approving the one presented or a variation thereof at a subsequent meeting. I think this is the fairest way to proceed at this point. I do want to state, however, that I am sincerely grateful for the work that was done by Leah to research and craft this policy. Hopefully, we can pass a policy that would be applicable across the board for all boards, not just these boards, commissions and committees. Board policies that will help set expectations, consistent guidelines, and help with accountability of board committee members. Thanks.
Okay. So what I think your suggestion is we pass this policy and use the policy at the next meeting. Is what I heard, but I don't think we need to use a stringent interview policy for the Parks and Rec Committee or the Agricultural Committee. The difference with these two committees and also the, Tax Review Board are these are policy setting committees that many times we get blamed for because the planning board passed a housing project. They need to be people who are able to keep up with all the changes that are going on at the state level. Be able to go out and research and sit and go and check out the properties. A lot of what these boards do change the character of the town more than we do as a council. So it is very important that we review these. It's probably a policy that should have been put in place 30 years ago. And now Leah is now trying to correct that. And I think we should pass a policy. Now, South Kingston is a little bit different how it's worded, but because I think it covers all their boards and committees, and we try to fill them as quickly as possible, as you mentioned, as opposed to having application timelines of October appointments, which is weird. But I would like to see us pass some sort of a policy this evening, if not have a policy written to be passed at the first part of next meeting. Ms. Patton.
Yeah, I also agree with Mary. So when I had sent an email over to find out if anyone had put in any applications for this position. And then that's when I was told that they were asked to put them on hold for now. And that the one person that resigned on the planning board was going to sit in after the council accept his resignation. I do feel that the two applicants that put in their their applications should be able to have the same interview process. I don't know if they were even notified that they're not qualified or if any letters have even went out.
We have need to go on the agenda, they will be notified that they're going to be on the next agenda or whatever agenda.
Okay, according to my email, one was not.
None have been denied or it was discussed on them, but nothing was decided.
Okay, that's not what my email says, but okay. So I mean, I also agree with Mary, and I think that the two applicants should, have that option. And I would like, I agree with the policy. I think that, we should go forward with having a policy so that we're all on the same page. And when applicants come in, we know that they're either being put on or put into the file for whenever another position is available.
And does that policy include advertising?
Oh, of course,
Yes.
yeah.
And I don't know if we can make our advertising more robust to, specifically look for folks with engineering degrees or design degrees and things like that. But I know we just kind of put in planning board, zoning board, agricultural committee. Okay.
Mr. Ham.
I think the current solicitation has more details than we've seen in the past. So that was an improvement.
Okay. Mr. Reese?
I just had a question. Does this require a charter change?
No.
I'd have to go back and review that.
I don't think
No?
so.
All right, because I didn't know whether they referenced how they were done.
The appointment for folks for the planning board and zoning boards are set more in state law than they are in our charter.
Okay.
And their rules and subject matter is more derived from the state level than ours. I'm getting a nod from our legal team, so I'm feeling good about this. So, would you be able to draft a Portsmouthized policy to bring back forth for us for next meeting, which would be the 23rd? And we'll do our interviews on the 23rd after we revise the policy and vote on the policy.
So the current applications that are filed.
Yes, any applications that come in before next Tuesday
Is
or
that the
Wednesday,
deadline?
Tuesday. Yeah,
Okay.
well, it's the agenda deadline, so.
Okay.
So,
Just,
bef- by noon on Tuesday.
This is an unrelated question. Is the planning board taking training now? Because when we were in Middletown, they referred that they were having trouble getting the state training for what they needed for all these new laws. There's supposed to be
There,
training being provided by the state, but they're lax on doing that.
I sent out the email to the planning board and zoning board. There's training, that's in March and April.
Okay.
And I would love if the planning board and zoning board signed up. It's
On-site training or
it's
is it via-
required training. It's virtual.
But I think,
virtual,
I
okay,
think
good.
that's what is coming up, but there was supposedly, they were talking about what had happened a few months before. Maybe it was just getting ramped up.
It was just getting ramped up a couple months ago, but the email from the state has come out
Okay.
about the upcoming training.
Yeah, because I don't know how they expect us to make all these decisions on these new laws when they really haven't trained everybody, and that's what they're doing. There's a lot of things coming through now which are affected by the laws, but these people are not up to speed yet.
Our consultant, Weston and Sampson, had multiple trainings, and not trainings, but went through all the changes with the zoning board and the planning board last year in 2024.
Would that be a requirement that the planning board members have met certain training criteria so that you know that they're up to at
The
least what
state requires that the planning board have 3 hours of training every year.
That's it?
Should be more. And they're more than welcome to go to workshops. I forward them tons of workshop opportunities.
Tough to be a volunteer nowadays.
It is. Again, it's an unpaid board. Ms. McDowell, you have a question?
yeah, so just clarify how we're going to move forward then?
We're gonna have a policy, Portsmouthized off of what, the planner has put forth.
Specifically for planning, zoning, and design review.
So do we need a motion to?
So it will not be, I mean, it'll be a variation there. I mean,
Yeah.
how are we going, all I want to do is what will be the process of approving the policy?
That'll-
Because,
We will approve it next week, next meeting. It will come out to us. It'll be on the agenda for the
Okay.
24th. 23rd. And then we will approve it, and you can make changes if you see something in there you don't like, we can wordsmith it. And it'll be an adopted, approved policy of the council. And then we will use that policy to appoint the next people on it. So we won't put the planning board appointments will be after we adopt this policy, or zoning board, whatever ones we have to do.
Can I just ask, I'm confused, because if you do those appointments after, you're not saying at the same meeting,
Yes.
but wouldn't they have to advertise or do other things? I mean, we don't know what the process would be. I don't think those appointments would meet the standards. You might want to do those first and then approve the policy as it go forward.
Well, either way, I think we should interview the applicants, which is the biggest part of the policy.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, either
Yes,
way.
yes. Sorry.
so I guess I would ask, could we interview the applicants that we have? How many do we have now, Jen? Yep. Yep. So interview the people by the way we interviewed last year, or, and probably use some guidance from the outline that Leah has in terms of questioning, because if I remember correctly, the last time we did this, I mean, there weren't any heavy-duty questions that we asked of the applicants, but given what we're reading from Leah, I mean, we could be more, could ask more pointed questions about the specific job that they would be doing, and then look at this policy, because I went through the policy, I went through South Kingston's too, and I'd love to have some clarity on some of the things, and I did speak with Leah today about some of it. that I think a good discussion would be very helpful in developing this policy, using Leah's stuff as a base.
Mr. Gleason.
Thank you. This is going to be a kind of a generic policy besides the three main boards here that get involved in state matters, so to speak. We're going to keep the application on file for a year now for all boards as received, proposed, right? Okay, thank you. That's a plus for me. The advertising thing is a little gray to me. If we advertise January through March and we don't have an open position on one of these three boards, does that just means we're going to accept applications and then leave them in a file till next open position? And then,
That's
Yeah.
South Kingston's policy. We don't have.
no, but I mean, it's something that we need to consider what we're going to put in there for language. I mean, right now, when there's a position open, we don't just go to the file and look for people, right? So if we leave them there for a year, then we can do that for one thing.
It seems like we're not going to move forward with that type of process.
I'm sorry?
It seems like we're not going to move forward with the South Kingston type of process. The way I'm hearing everybody's
Oh,
comments.
I'm just telling you what I see as pluses, and, the advertising is a gray area to me. So I'm not really sure how you want to handle that.
The advertising period, just, it seems like it would delay the process if we had
Right.
multiple vacancies and we advertised in October and we appointed somebody in January, we're losing a couple of meetings.
Jen,
And the other-
Ms. West, can you explain how you currently advertise when there's openings?
We've got a section that has all of the openings, under the boards and committees section. We put out an ad when we have usually there are certain committees that we're always looking for people. If there's one that comes up where there is, more, speciality required, we try to advertise that so that we're looking for the zoning board, planning board, because a lot of times, even though it's on the website, people don't apply.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes we advertise for a month and we get nobody for any. We put it on the door, we have it in the office. I mean, there's only so many things you can do you can't,
I get it.
So, if there's something where it's not an immediate thing, we try to gather a bunch of things, especially for the boards and committees where there's no restriction on numbers, like, the dog park. So, we're conscious of that, we're conscious of when it's needed. We're conscious of the cost of advertising. We are, when people are leaving, we're also hoping that, they might refer somebody to get an application. We can't put anybody in a place until that other person's resigned. Sometimes somebody says they're resigning, but they haven't told us to tell council. So hearsay, we need it taken at face value because somebody might not like this person, or you might have randomly said, oh, I'm gonna resign, but then they changed their mind. So until there's actually a space open, you can't advertise for that spot.
So good ideas. Maybe you can put something together, when you portionize this thing. That'll help you to help us. The other thing is, if we have three applicants for the planning board, and we pick one, whether you consider keeping the other two on file for the next time around. That's something you consider, was that have a value to you? You know what I mean? To propose in this.
I can answer that. I think that's a very important thing, and I think we should keep them on file because you never know if somebody moves, if somebody immediately resigns, I think they should be kept on file. That's why I put in there kept on file for a year.
I would agree.
And Mr. Reese, his original question, I wanted to allude that I think that when existing members go up for reappointments, I think they should be interviewed for reappointment, and either myself or the chair should opine on how many meetings they've attended, include information like that, so you have some information upon their interview.
We have a comment from behind.
Oh.
Mr. Rigo. There's gonna be another, you're gonna have to raise the microphone up, sir.
Good evening. Mr. President, members of the council.
Name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Frank Rigo, 40 Jesse Drive, Portsmouth. I prepared a statement because I want to make sure that this is concise and clear. Mr. President, members of the town council, and members of the public. My name is Frank Rigo, and I'm here tonight to speak regarding the handling of my application to serve on the Portsmouth Planning Board. I come before you not out of anger, but out of respect for this town, its residents, and the integrity of its public institutions. I applied in good faith for an open position on the planning board, believing the process would be fair, transparent, and consistent with the town code and charter. After submitting my application, which when I submitted January 15th at 12:43 p.m., I was there told that it would go on the next agenda for vote at the next meeting in this office. I learned later, after submitting my application, I learned that there were 2 qualified applicants. I later learned the council was informed by staff that there was only 1 applicant, and this is what I was told after speaking to individuals. Shortly thereafter, an item was placed on the agenda to review and change the appointment process itself. I then called and was informed that the appointment would not take place at this meeting. It's being held for the next meeting till other applicants apply. The sequence shortly thereafter, the item was put on. This sequence of events raises serious concerns. Under Portsmouth Code Section 10.5, the authority to appoint planning board members rests solely with this council. It does not belong to staff. It does not belong to any individual department. It belongs to you as elected representatives of the people. No ordinance authorizes the town clerk or the town planner to exclude applicants, redefine qualifications, or manipulate the process by which candidates are presented to this body. Yet, that is effectively what occurred. I am also aware of internal communications were exchanged regarding my application that focused on preventing my consideration as a candidate. If confirmed, this is not merely inappropriate, it's unacceptable. I sent an email to every council member based on the email that's in this town website, explaining, attaching my resume, my application, explaining the reasoning behind my application and my extensive experience to sit on the planning board, which it is extensive. I'll be more than happy to interview with any of you and even take a test if you like. Public service appointments must be based on merit, qualifications, and fairness. They must never be influenced by personal preferences, internal politics, or undisclosed agendas. When the process is altered, after applicants are submitted, when applicants are misrepresented to the council, public trust is damaged. This is bigger than my application. This is about what residents whether residents can have confidence that opportunities to serve their community are administered honestly and without bias. I am asking this council to do three things. First, to formally review how my application and the related agenda item were handled. Second, to obtain and examine all relevant communications between staff members concerning this matter. Third, to reaffirm appointments to boards and commissions will be conducted strictly in accordance with the town code with full transparency and accountability. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for equal treatment. I'm asking for the same fair consideration that any qualified resident deserves. I am proud to live in this town. I go back almost 6 generations here. I believe in this community, and I believe this council is capable of addressing the issue with integrity and courage. I appreciate your time, your attention, and your willingness to uphold the principles of open and honest government. I trust that you will do the right thing. I'll be mailing all of you a copy of the letter for the formal request, as well as a copy for the formal records request. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we are establishing a policy to do number 3, to make it more transparent and open. So I think that is already covered. If you want to put your APRA request in, it would go to the administrator's office as per the new policy that will be discussed tomorrow morning at the staff meeting, and go to Rebecca to track, correct? Okay. At this point, do we have a motion to request, I don't think we need a motion, but to request the policy be created and put forth on the next agenda? That's all we're here to do tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. So we'll have those discussions on the 23rd. I close out the agenda again, but I think all we have left is correspondence. Is there anything that anybody sees on there that they would like to discuss?
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. So we have our future meetings, which will be the 23rd. We have March 9th, which will be our regular council meeting, and then on the 16th, we'll be discussing our newly put forth sign ordinance. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes